Hey guys, it's Michael from EAKCrewProductions, and I thought I would start a new segment called Side Deck. So, what the segment is going to be, don't really pay attention to this Dark World deck. There's some cards in there that I wouldn't normally make for choices in the deck. But what I really want to pay attention to is the side deck down here that I've designed for the deck. So, these segments are going to be like, this one's going to be titled Side Deck, colon brackets, whatever, Dark World. And what that means is we're going to go over the side deck that I find ideal for a Dark World deck. And then, of course, you can make your own changes. Alright, so first off, I think 2 Gemini Imps is mandatory, at least 2 in the matchup, or in the sideboard. I think it's because a lot of Dark World decks, Dark Worlds is a very good deck, but it's considered tier 2 for the simple fact that mirror matches knock them out of tournaments. So one of the better cards is Gemini Imps. This way your opponent has to side out a lot of their cards. They can't really do any Dark World dealings drag down into the grave, because if they activate those effects, then you can chain your Gemini Imps in response, making them waste their card while you draw a card. So really, really great. I personally only run it at 2 for the simple fact that a lot of Dark World players are smarter than that and will side out some of those cards anyways. So 3, you might find yourself having them dead in your hand. Yeah. 2 Kaiku. Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. Let me read you his effect. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target up to 2 monsters in their graveyard. Banish those targets. Your opponent cannot banish cards from either player's graveyard. Now, this card is good because you can banish the Graphas that they get into their graveyard, making it a lot harder for them. But what you can also do is, his continuous effect is, your opponent cannot banish cards from either player's graveyard. Meaning that if they do side out Dealings and they side out Drag Down, that their really only main discard card is going to be Gates of the Dark World. So, what you do is you use Kaiku so that they can't activate Gates of the Dark World, because they need to banish one Fiend type monster. With Kaiku on the field, they can't banish, means that they can't win. Kaiku's pretty buff too. Alright, now Thunder King Ryo, it's a good card. Why we run it in here is not specifically for the mirror match. We've gone over a lot of the mirror match cards, but Thunder King Ryo is more for your Girga matchups, your Spellbook matchups, pretty much any deck that's really searching a bunch. He's a giant monster, he negates summons. What's not good about Thunder King? Just make sure that he doesn't conflict with your own deck. But seeing as how you might pull out some Dealings and you might pull out some Drag Downs when you side, I don't think it should be a big deal. Unless, of course, you're not siding against Dark Worlds. Then you just take something else out. Maybe your Silva. Alright, then we have the MST. The MST is because this deck usually wins game 1. Not many decks can beat Dark Worlds game 1, although they can. Definitely don't believe that they can't. If you run straight into a Macro Rabbit, you might just get smacked up. But a lot of the problems for Dark World decks, once your opponent has side, are spell and trap cards, and not really monster cards. So you want to use MST so that you can get rid of cards like Soul Drain. Soul Drain, of course, stopping your effects in the graveyard. So add the 3rd MST in, and right next to it, the Dust Tornado, same thing. And it's also good for your mirror match, or not a mirror match, but a match against a Gear Town player, because if you actually utilize the set 1 spell or trap card from your hand, it'll make them miss timing on their Gear Town. Alright, we also have 2 Debunk. Now this is for a mirror match as well, because they will also most definitely be setting Imps against you. So when they activate their Imps, you go ahead and activate Debunk, because Imps is a card that activates in their hand. You will go neg doing this. Well, you're going to be playing this card. So right now you're neg 1. Then you play this card. So you're neg 2, right? And then, of course, they lose imps, so they go -1, essentially making you only -1. Um, especially depending on what you're doing. If you drop this and then draw 2, you know, the deck is nutty. Alright, 2 goes in match. Each player can only control 1 attribute of monster. Send all other face-up attribute monsters they control to graveyard. So they're all darks, you know. This card's not at all for the mirror match. Don't ever side it in for that unless you're playing a Twilight variant, but I still probably wouldn't do it. This one's more for those mismatched decks, those less archetype decks. And I believe you can say this against windups, but yeah, windups. Even though I think rivalry hurts them a lot more. Alright, Soul Drain. Yeah, I think you could also do it against Dino Rabbits as well. Soul Drain. This one is a little bit for the mirror match. So really though, it's for Mermo Atlanteans. Makes them not be able to get their effects in their graveyards. Other than that, I wouldn't really side it in. You could side it in against the mirror match, however, because you pretty much just wait for them to get an effect off while you don't have the imp in hand to stop it, and then you could flip the Soul Drain. Sure, you're going to lose 1,000 life points, but now they don't get the pluses that they were going to get. They just get dumped cards. And, you know, with your extra MSTs and Dust Tornadoes, you could always just MST or Dust Tornado the Soul Drain. No. Dust Tornado has to be 1 card your opponent controls. But MST, you always MST your own Soul Drain and then start getting your effects off on your turn. So, good card. And then last but not least, Starlight Road. If you're playing against a deck that just seems to run 2 Mirror Force, 2 Torrential, Dark Hole, Heavy Storm, you might as well add in a Starlight Road because it'll really punish them, and it'll, I mean, most of the time getting your monster board wiped isn't a big deal, but when they do hit your back row and you've got like your face-up skill drains, yeah, you know, and your Gates of Dark World, and then maybe like your back row Deep Prison, a Starlight Road in the back to really help it out would not be bad at all. So that is the sideboard for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope I gave you a little bit of knowledge on the deck and the side deck for it. See you guys later. Peace. Subscribe.